I know it says live, Nicholas, but are we live? Are we in fact live?
You know what? That is a question I don't have the answer to, and I didn't realize. Is that what you've been asking me this whole time?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm gonna tickle Ryan Parrott right where he itches.
oh boy.
We're gonna kick things off with a little sports talk here because I love this so much. Red Sox get off to a red hot start.
Oh God.
Right? They are like a goddamn pistol beating the shit out of the likes of the Oakland A's and the Angels and the Mariners, right? All teams that fucking stink. But I will give their pitchers credit, right? The pitchers went out and they dominated. And now, all of a sudden, oh, the injury bug's hitting. Oh, you telling me if you throw, 80 breaking balls a fucking game, your elbow might fall off? Oh, geez. Oh, let's pin our hopes defensively on Trevor Story, a guy who's barely played since being here. Oh, he's out for the season again. Oh, yeah.
The Trevor Story.
Bravo. I was getting it with my brother. And he's like, "Oh, I wouldn't have expected this injury to happen." I go, "What do you mean you wouldn't have expected it to happen?" He played 93 games. He'll play, I think, like 93 games in 3 seasons. Right?
Trevor Story is a good player when he plays, but the problem is that how often does he play?
Trevor Story is a dime a dozen player who benefited greatly from playing in Coors Field.
That is also true.
I will put him, when he's healthy, he's an above average defender. Right? He's a Gold Glove caliber defender, right? But he's a fucking shit hitter.
Well,
right?
So I think
you take him outside of Coors Field, and I think he's a career 230 hitter.
This is funny. Usually, I feel like when we're talking sports, that I'm the one that's like not kinder, but I guess I'll go that route for lack of a better term. Because Trevor Story, I wouldn't say that, and I remember hearing when he signed with the Red Sox from someone in the league that the rumor was like the Red Sox got him as a second baseman, and it took so long to sign him was because he still wanted to play shortstop, and people didn't think he could play shortstop.
He can't make the throw. He can't make the fucking throw.
So that's
No, he's not a Gold Glove defender now, but in his prime.
Okay, in his prime,
right?
Yeah,
in his prime, right?
Sure, you can give him more. Yes.
Right. Anyways,
I mix him up with Tulo so much, which is doing Tulo got injured all the time too, but that's definitely doing Tulo dirty.
Yeah. Tulo was a better player in his prime than Trevor Story ever was. But that's neither here or there, Nicholas. We're not here to bore the people with shitty Red Sox baseball. We are here to talk about comic books, and I would love nothing more than to welcome the ladies and gentlemen, the boys and girls, the listeners of all ages, Nicholas. I've probably sworn a million times, but the listeners of all ages. That's you know what? They're gonna hear it, whether it's from me, whether it's on the playground. They're gonna hear it.
Oh, yep, that's for damn sure.
Geeks Worldwide Radio and the Dork Shared Gooniverse proudly presents you the greatest, and I mean the greatest podcasting team in the world. He's a comic book writer, Nick Friar. I'm your friendly neighborhood backcracker, Dr. Joe. Together we are the TLDR Comic Book Club, baby. How's it going, Nicholas?
I am doing great because the aforementioned Red Sox lost today. And who could have seen that coming? They actually don't play a Mickey Mouse organization. Of course they're going to get pistol whipped. Especially when
Tyler O'Neill, right? I'll give him credit.
Yeah.
He hit a home run. You know what else you can set your watch to? That guy's going to get hurt within the next 4 weeks.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. He'll have like 10 home runs. He's Adam Duvall 2.0.
Yeah. But I was fading the hell out of the Red Sox against the Orioles in their opener. It's like, oh yeah, they're celebrating the 2024, the 2004 team. Great. They're about to come crashing down to earth real quick.
Yeah.
1-0 lead, and then boom, 7-1 loss.
Who's their left fielder? I don't even know who's playing left field. Duran. I think it was Duran. He makes Manny Ramirez look like fucking Torrey Hunter out there in the outfield. Oh God, that guy stinks.
You know what? I think Manny deserves more credit for how he played. He played at defense in Fenway. Yeah, Duran is in left field now, and Rafael is in center. That's right. Okay.
I will say this about the Red Sox, and this is it. 2 players I absolutely love on this team: Bayo and Rafaela.
Yeah, I mean, how can
they got him locked up? That was smart. Smart. Good for you, Breslow. All right, good job.
Yeah,
Now,
but
now go sign some real fucking talent.
I forgot that Duran moved over to left field because the baseball that I watch is pretty much anything but the Red Sox these days. I watch
Yeah.
because thankfully one of the two of us has the MLB TV app, so I am spoiled. Thank you very much, T-Mobile. Anyways, moving on. Quick. Oh, my bad. We're not supposed to tell people that. I don't know.
I've shared it with like 1,000 people. You know?
Oh yeah, okay. What are they gonna do? They ain't Netflix. They need. You know what, Joe? They need everybody watching that shit, so they can shut up.
Facts.
Yeah, I'm the first one to defend baseball, probably in this neck of the woods, but they need all the help they can get always. Anyways, so if you're we've talked so much sports in the first 5 minutes of this. I hope you all haven't stopped listening. But if you are considering it, then maybe go check out one of our Friar side chats because barring a conversation with maybe like Ryan Parrott, maybe their John Boy conversation a couple years back. We don't really talk a whole heck of a lot of sports in here. When we have Kyle Higgins on, I know that's come up a little bit here and there. And if you're wondering what a Friar side chat is, basically we have a creator from across the industry, whether we're talking about, we could be editors, could be chief creator officers of certain publishers. It could be writers, artists, you name it. We've pretty much had all types on. I'm sure we could expand a little more, but either way, you're only going to find those on our audio channels. We're talking Apple, Spotify, Geeks Worldwide Radio, Amazon, Pocket Cast, all the major platforms. You can find us there. If you're finding us on YouTube or on Instagram Live or on Twitter or X, whatever the hell you want to call it, make sure you go find one of our audio channels as well, because that's the only place you're going to find those Friar side chats. We usually do not do video stuff when it comes to those. Those are audio only. Anyways, and you never know when they're going to come. We don't tell you guys we have them until they're in the hopper. And if you subscribe and leave a 5-star rating and review or higher, you're going to get that delivered right to your listening device. So make sure you do that because then you don't have to worry about following us on Twitter. You should follow us on Instagram because Doc does some pretty sick shit over there. And if you watch us on the streams, you can see that with our backgrounds. I love when you do these, Joe, because that means we're doing a mainline episode today. We have some interesting books to talk about today. I have a book that you are, would you say terrified by?
100%. I put it down after the first page. So nope. Can't do it.
And then you're talking about a Marvel team that I'm not particularly too big on.
You're going to read this, Nicholas. I guarantee it.
Wow. Okay. Apparently this is a Men's Warehouse ad too. So let's get to what we've been catching up on as we've gotten through all our bullshitting. For me, Joe, the only one that I caught up on, at least that I made note of, was Duke issue 4. I will say for me, this was probably the first issue where I was like, it wasn't bad. It's just like it didn't do a whole hell of a lot for me. But this maybe because I'm just not a lifelong G.I. Joe fan who's familiar with some of these characters.
That was them busting out, right?
Yeah, I mean the end was good. The end was good. So I will check out 5. They deserve more than just 1 where I'm like and then moving on. But anyways, what have you been catching up on?
So I got through most of my stack. I'm pretty much caught up through my stack. Zorro issue 3, Sean Murphy, love it.
Oh yeah,
so good. Red Sonja, City of the Damned issue 1. I told you I'm a full blown Red Sonja convert, right? And this was written by Steve Niles. So I just finished the run, the arc that was written by Dan Panosian. Before that, it was Mirka Andolfo, who got me into the character in the first place. And now this by Steve. This was a really, really solid first issue. The character, she's so badass. I don't read a ton of fantasy comics, so this sort of scratches that itch. And this was just really well done. Steve Niles is a great writer. So as soon as I saw, the previews for this in Panosian's Red Sonja, and we talked about in the solicit, I go, Steve Niles, got to read it, right? Got to read it. But a book that I want to talk about, and we don't do this a ton, books that we highlight from catching up.
Oh yeah.
But I finally, these 2 books have been sitting in my stack, and I don't know why I hadn't gotten to them sooner. But
I hate when that happens.
Dark Spaces Dungeon issues 3 and 4, written by Scott Snyder with art by Hayden Sherman, not Hayden Christensen.
Either way.
And man, I can't remember who the user was on Twitter, but we had a nice little back and forth about this because I had retweeted because Snyder had posted about it. I did a retweet, and a nice little back and forth. This series is fucking tremendous. I can't wait to talk about it. It's giving me Silence of the Lamb vibes to
Ooh. Ooh.
right?
Oh, wow.
Like Snyder is just like he's in some sort of zone with this sort of cat and mouse. I wouldn't even call the antagonist a serial killer, right? Because he's got people like locked away in these dungeons, very Buffalo Bill esque, right? But a lot more involved. There's a lot more to it than just like, say a serial killer kidnapping someone, keeping them down in their basement. No, this guy, this antagonist is methodical. This is decades and decades of torment that he's inflicted on people, and just the cat and mouse aspect of it. And one of the main characters is an FBI agent. He was one of the only people who was abducted as a kid to escape, these dungeons. They're elaborate um, torture rooms
Damn.
essentially, and people are in there for decades, right? Because he keeps them barely alive. So this kid escaped and became an FBI agent, and now he's, trying to track him down. As a new kid has recently been taken. So this is like, if you're into that kind of stuff, that thriller, that suspense, like that borderline, like I would say horror, not in the traditional sense of horror, but like in that suspenseful kind of state of horror.
Mm.
This book is fantastic. If you haven't been reading it, do so. Catch up. Um,
You have
just
dibs on this, so I'm out till
yeah,
then.
yeah, yeah. The,
Okay.
the Dark Spaces universe that Snyder has created in general has been fantastic. I haven't even read them all. I've only read a couple, but this one here, Dungeon, knocks my bloody socks off.
Yeah, he was really saying how this might be like his scariest title that
It's
he's done.
it's fucking twisted, man. It's dark.
Nice. That's
Yeah,
really cool. That's
yeah,
I'm very interested to hear a little more about this. Of course, that's from IDW,
yep.
who I'm sure we'll touch on in some capacity in a bit. But we got to get to what's new for this week. And normally, Joe, you start us off with Marvel, but today you're gonna start us off with DC.
I am, because I'm discussing a Marvel book. That's what we call a hot tease. Hot tease. I don't know if that's a thing I just made up, but it's a hot
Nice.
tease.
I'm here for it.
Uh, you're damn right you are. So from DC Comics, we have Action Comics 1064, Green Lantern issue 10, The Batman First Night issue 2, Red Hood the Hill issue 3, which you're reading but didn't get to read this week.
Yeah, just and I think that says something about the first two issues. I mean, I've been pretty honest about the first two issues, just like not getting a whole hell of a lot of Red Hood. So I will check it out before next week. But there were other things that took priority over it. Quite
Yeah.
honestly,
We have Outsiders issue 6, Suicide Squad Dream Team issue 2, Speed Force issue 6, Sinister Sons issue 3, Batman Dylan Dog issue 2,
ooh,
Batman, Robin, and Howard issue 2, and
whoa,
then a book I want to discuss. Why are you saying whoa? Everything okay?
yeah, I'm just joking around because
Oh,
Batman, Robin, and Howard, and then you also got Batman and Dylan Dog.
right.
Of course, all these characters who I'm not familiar with, especially that Batman guy. No clue who that is.
Well, we had a commenter say, the way I say Spider-Man, a dark horse, right? It was funny at first, and I've maybe so the way I said I will because it's become a nervous tick, it just
Wait,
kind of happens.
you're not gonna stop doing that. I don't care what he said or
No,
her.
no, no,
She
no,
said,
no, no. Spider-Man is
yeah,
here to
yeah.
say, but like
Thank you.
Scabound and Dark Horse, right? Those
I say them too. I don't know, man. I can't
uh,
make any promises. Sorry. That's what we do. I like you doing it, so I'm gonna be pissed if you stop doing it because I like it. But
but
Batman, you made rules on Batman and Superman. You said I can't do that shit.
yeah, they just don't sound right. It doesn't feel right. It's not as organic as Spider-Man or
Mm.
Scabound.
Now you're
But
just making
from
up rules.
yeah, well, that's what I do here.
This is true.
But from DC, a book I wanted to highlight is Batman and Robin issue 8. This is like I loved like when Williamson he wrote a singular Batman, I mean a singular Robin title, which I talked about on the show. Never thought I would. Absolutely loved it. Right.
Right.
And Williamson, he's been very much involved in all things Batman, Robin, Bat Family, going on at DC. And so when it was announced it was Batman and Robin, I was like, oh man, I was a little disappointed at first because I don't always need Batman, right? We don't always need Bruce Wayne, Batman, in these you can tell a great Bat family story with any of these characters, and if you have the right writer attached to it, they can be great books, as Josh Williamson did with Robin. But the way he's been writing Batman and Robin, it's been a really great buddy cop series, because as similar as they are, they're also very different. And you've got that father-son dynamic to it, but there's just been really, really great stories. And he's bringing some of the stuff in from that Robin series into this series, with Flatline and a character called Shush, not Hush, Shush.
Interesting.
That's been so, like, that arc, this most recent arc with that has been really fascinating. It's been action packed. It's just been really great stuff. So, like, if you're at the comic book shop and you're seeing like Batman and Robin, and you're like, yeah, Robin, and if Joshua Williamson's name's attached to it, people grab the goddamn book. Especially this series. I absolutely love it. I don't know if I'll talk about this series as a standalone like I did with Robin, but I'll definitely talk about it, each month, especially when a kick-ass issue comes out, because I just love it so much, and it's a great dynamic. I always thought Damian Wayne was just a little fucking shit that I couldn't stand, and he still is a little shit. But Joshua Williamson just gives him just the slightest bit of humanity, and just humanizes him just a smidge. They go, all right, fucking yes, I love Damian Wayne now. He's great. Right. So I highly recommend this series to anyone reading it. And this is something you can give to your nephews to read. It's not, horrifically violent or anything like that.
Okay. So, but basically, if you see Joshua Williamson doing writing Robin in some capacity, you're interested.
Batman in general. Joshua Williamson, DC, just fucking grab it.
Okay. All right. Moving over to Image, we got The Scorched issue 28, Phantom Road issue 10.
Oh, excellent.
Ooh, Napalm Lullaby issue 2.
So I had this one earmarked, right? This is the make or break issue for me, and I fucking forgot to read it today.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. It happens.
We'll make catching up next week, I'm sure.
Okay, I am very curious. I hope you tell me before catching up next week, because I'm very curious. Oh no, you're gonna keep me waiting now. You sometimes you can't wait to tell me about a book, and you text me eyeball emojis, just like title eyeball emojis, and it's just now you're gonna make me wait.
Well, two things. There's two things at play here, Nicholas. One, my age-addled Swiss cheese brain.
That's true.
And two, the motivation to really want to grab the book and make sure I read it ahead of time.
And that's what in fact,
that's just that we're being honest. Yep. We're an honest podcast here, people.
Yep. Then we got the Cabinet issue 3, St. Mercy Godland issue 1. I think that's the second volume of the St. Mercy stories and stuff. And then we got Rat City issue 1, which you'd call dibs on. You have undibs it.
Mm-hmm.
I read it. I understand why.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. Yep. I'm not going to say you're trash. It's not a bad book. Just it didn't pull me in
100%.
Right. It did. There was just certain elements to it that just didn't pull me in. And hey, we not everything is going to be for everybody.
100%. But what is for at least you and I, and maybe everybody, is I Hate Fairyland issue 13. And I mean, I actually completely mean that with this specific issue of I Hate Fairyland too, because look, obviously, with all the different titles, when you start going into multiple issues and everything, you want to have read the previous ones so you understand what the fuck's going on. But I will say this is a little bit of a one-off issue in a way. Now, I don't think you can appreciate it without having read about Gert previously. But at the same time, if you guys have listened to me talk about it in the episode I did fairly recently on I Hate Fairyland, you kind of have an idea what's going on with the character. Then you get into this specific issue, and the whole issue is just a commentary on the film industry. So it's kind of putting the whole general larger plot on pause, and it's a Scotty Young saying, you know what? I have a story that I need to tell you guys. I don't know if Scotty Young went through this experience. I'm assuming it's got to be inspired by at least somebody he knows, if not his actual experience, because it's just the stuff felt very familiar in terms of commentary on Hollywood in general. And I just, but for me, it's seeing Gert go through this whole experience was kind of perfect. And again, it felt like, oh, I'm getting this like from the writer, from the artist. No one is editing this. So it felt a little more personal. And I will say too, if this is based on an experience with I Hate Fairyland that Scotty Young had with like Hollywood, I would be rip shit because like, dude, this has such high potential to be an awesome adult animated series. Like totally like he has that like this cartoony art style. And of course, Brett Bean is doing the second volume of I Hate Fairyland. And I just think that if you could capture that type of approach in animated form, which I would believe you can, I feel like I've seen that in cartoons before, it could really, man, it could be like a game changer for the adult animated space, especially for like, stories that animated stories or shows that are inspired by comic books. So I really hope that's not what happened to Scotty. But at the same time, if it is and he walked away from it, I also appreciate that because this I Hate Fairyland deserves better.
Yeah, it'd be awesome if it was like on HBO Max or something.
Yeah, I feel like Amazon's the place that we're going to see more and more of that. Netflix can, like Netflix does obviously does anime, but obviously we have Invincible is the big one. I've talked about Vox Machina, and then we're getting Witches too.
How have you felt about the second half of season 2 of Invincible?
I didn't watch the last episode, but definitely stronger.
Stronger. My only beef is that it was really like heavy and I on the relationship stuff, right?
Yep.
And I I just wish they could have like tightened that up a little. You know what I mean? Because I love it, but I think part of it is I love Sandra Oh, but I don't care much for her voice acting in this. And I wish like the Mark stuff with Amber maybe get past that a little bit quicker and really, but I guess it all sort of leads up to how the season ends and stuff. But I was like, I wanted a little bit more action. I wanted a little bit more. It wasn't very upbeat. I wanted some more.
I think this second. I think like the second season of any show is just like it's always like kind of
like I love the first half of season 2.
Oh, you
and
love
then
the
we
first
had
half.
I did. I love the first half, and then we get that cliffhanger, and then and then it's like we get that delay, and I think it's just been a slower pace to it.
The delay was just. I know the whole commentary, like that whole joke they
No,
had
that was
about
hilarious.
that was hilarious, and I respect it, but at the same time, it's like we waited a long time for 2. Don't like the delay is just that's tough.
Yeah. I think to kind of really I think the second half of season 2 had a pacing issue, and that's took me out of it just a little bit. But
Man,
it's
and that pause is
still
going to do
excellent.
it on its own. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so. But anyways, speaking of Skybound, we do have Transformers issue 7. We do not get the review copies, but you and I have been loving Transformers. What?
So, a patient of mine loves comics, loves Transformers, right? And but hadn't been reading the comics, so I went through and I grabbed all my issues. I didn't have issue 1 because I bought it digitally at first. So I told him I go, here's 2 through 6. He's a big digital comic guy, so he's like, oh, I'll just grab it digitally. He goes, but my daughter will love these. It's great, awesome. Here you go. And I realized I got home late at night. I gave him the stack, but like issue 5 like fell out, so it was still in my bag. So I gave him issues 2, 3,
Oh, jeez.
4, and 6. Go, and I won't see him again for like another month. So like,
oh no. But that's awesome though. And he'll just buy it. He'll get it digitally for his kid and everything. But that's great. That's awesome. Yeah, Transformers is definitely a good one to be handed out to people. Look at Doc. His work doesn't stop just when the show ends. He's always grinding and helping the medium. Then we have AWA Studios, Joe, the book that I called dibs on, but then it was robbed from me for the sake of the people, not for the sake of you. Little Black Book issue 2. We've obviously talked about it quite a bit because you and I got an early look at not just the first issue, but also the second issue. We've talked to Jeff McCumsey and Felipe Quina on the show. You can catch the Friar Side chat from a little while back, ahead of issue 1. Joe also put up preview pages from the second issue, excuse me, as well, over on our Instagram page at TLDR_pod. We've talked about this ending a lot. Obviously, we're not going to go and spoil it for the people. We've also talked about the first issue's ending a lot. I'm very excited for them to finally get this second one and understand why we've been raving about it. But the one thing I just wanted to say, and circling back on all of this, is that what's so interesting as we've talked about it more isn't just that these are both awesome endings to issues. It's how they're just awesome in very different ways.
Yeah, two completely different cliffhanger type endings, but two very and two you don't see coming at all. And what I love most about these first two issues, and I see why this is, because when we chatted with Jeff, he's got a great sense of humor. And what he does is, this is a very dark story, but he's able to sort of, add this levity to it, add humorous situations to situations that aren't very humorous at all. And then Felipe did a great job with some of his facial expressions, at interjecting some humor when, like, there shouldn't be humor there, but it works. And I love that about this story, because you're just getting this really well-rounded, uh, excellently executed story, that pulls you in right from the get-go. And, like, we can kind of see where it's going, but the way these two issues end, I should say, tell you have no idea where it's going to go, because just when you think you're going down this road here, bang, you're getting swerved.
Yeah.
And I fucking love that.
Yeah, but everything you think that's happening as you're going through, even if you're reading the second issue, as you're going through it, you have no clue where things are going at by the end of it. Yep, 100%. What do we got from Boom this week?
So from Boom Studios, we have House of Slaughter issue 22, of which I still need to catch up on the issue 21. We have Mighty Morphin Power Rangers The Return issue 3.
The penultimate issue.
The penultimate issue. I love that word, penultimate. It's a
great word. Way better than you go into the final episode, and like before that it's penultimate. It's like you're guaranteed for a letdown with the final episode.
100%, 100%. But I love the word nonetheless. Jim Henson's Labyrinth Archive Edition issue 1, and then a book we've talked about many, many times recently. Uncanny Valley issue 1. This is written by Tony Fleece, with art by
Dave Watcher.
Thank you. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it last week when we did a little look ahead, and we were able to chat with Tony about it. And he told us, he gave us a really great sneak peek a few weeks back when we had him on the program. So this is a fun book, and it's wacky. It's deep. It's beautifully illustrated. Tony is a hell of a storyteller. So make sure you go grab Uncanny Valley when you hit your local comic book shop this week.
Yeah, and the attention to detail with his writing, I was very impressed by that in just the 10 pages. So I think that a lot of our listeners will catch on that, and they'll see why. But yeah, awesome stuff. Then we got Dark Horse, I believe is how you pronounce it. We have Count Crawley, Mediocre Midnight Monster Hunter issue 3, which is title of the year for Joe. And then, speaking of Monster Hunters, we actually also have Monsters Are My Business issue 1 by friend of the show, Cullen Bunn, with art by Patrick Piazzalunga, I believe is how you pronounce that last name. Joe, did you read this?
I didn't get a chance to read it, and I know what's coming up.
Yeah. I can't believe it. We talked about it. Oh my God.
Well, because you said you didn't call dibs on it, and I said, okay, good. So fair. So honest question: if I had read it, would you have called dibs on me still?
Nope. I wanted to let you read it still. I wanted to, it's a Cullen book. Like, we do it once in a while, you know what I mean? But like sometimes we try to share, and we have a lot of stuff. But
I was ahead on my reading, because I think we had this discussion yesterday, or was it this morning?
I think it was the morning of recording this. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I had every intention of reading it, and then I was so I'm going to read it now, and then I had it queued up. I was like, no, let me read this instead. So I started, and then I had to go out and run. So I just fuck.
So yeah, I mean,
Fuck.
because there are some times with these books, like with ones that where it's like creators we know or something I think you will like. I want to hold off on calling dibs because it's I want to give you a chance to experience it and everything too. But when you don't get on top of it, then I'm not gonna I gave you your chance. And
No, it's fair. That I can't gripe about this one. I had every opportunity. This is you're not being a snake on this one.
although, well, give it a month when we get to issue 2. You're gonna call. I'm curious if your Swiss cheese brain is gonna forget and call me a snake again. Everybody else, take note. Make a note of this one. But I don't want to timestamp us. But for me, why so I just saw the title and I was like, okay, Cullen's the writer on this. I want to check it out. Again, same for you, of course. I'm not familiar with Patrick's art style, but then I see the cover and I'm like, oh, okay. So this has got like a cartoony vibe, and I wasn't sure if it was Patrick doing the cover art, and it is. Then I get to the interior, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is. I wanted more cartoony stuff. Like after reading I Hate Fairyland, and then getting what we're getting with Tony and all the in between. Obviously, Stray Dogs from a couple years back, and now Feral, and then Uncanny Valley. You're getting all this cartoony stuff, and then we get this. And now, anytime I'm seeing Patrick Piazzalunga's name attached to a project, I'm gonna be interested because we're getting that cartoony art style. And then on top of that, for me, it's like, ooh, so you have that, and then it's a Monster Hunter story, and then Cullen is, Cullen has a tendency to get violent and can get a little scary with some of his shit. It's like, oh, okay, this is an interesting mix, and dude, a great mix of like fun in vicious violence. You have this Monster Hunter team of this big burly dude named Grizz, who's who's the muscle, but he's also running the show. Then you also have Hillary, who seems to be more of the brain of the team, but she's also like kind of untrustworthy in a way because she keeps like you guys will learn. I don't want to say more than that. You'll learn as you read this. And then you have Cuddles, who would have been Joe's favorite character probably, and he's basically Grizz's sidekick, and he's a koala who fights these monsters. So, and you see them all on that cover. I had a blast reading this, and I was like, oh man, like part of me wants to call dibs, but I don't want to do that to Joe. And then, I mean, you did it to yourself. Are you seeing some of the art right now?
Well, I was just because the name sounded familiar, and I was like, oh, did he do any? Because for some reason I feel like the name sounds familiar, but I'm just looking, and at least let's see here.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
either
according to Comics League of Comic, nothing I reckon. Some Marvel stuff with Captain America and X Factor and stuff like that. But for some reason, I thought he had done some stuff over at Image, but I was mistaken.
okay.
Wrong Italian.
But either way, I'm very excited now that I have dibs on this one because it was off to a really, really fun start. But that is it for Dark Horse. What do we got from IDW?
So from IDW, we have the book I have been waiting for, and I'm hoping to get a chance to talk to writer Peter. I think it's Hovarth. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, issue 5. This book has just been surprise book of 2024 / end of 2023. Just everything about it again scratches me right where I itch. That again, I just go back into this sort of an analogy, comparison, we're gonna call it, of Dexter meets the Berenstain Bears. Like there's something about it that says no, this shouldn't work, but it is fucking perfect. And it's just great suspenseful storytelling. I can't wait to see where this book ends, how it ends. It's been great, and now I know when I see Peter's name on a book, I'm going to grab it and write it. That's the effect he's had just with this series of alone, and I love that. I love when I discover writers like that, because then it just gives me it just continues to open up the library of books to read.
That's awesome. Yeah.
We have Earth Divers issue 16. Dark Spaces Dungeon issue 5. That was, I think, why I went. Was like, go ahead and get these fucking books read, ding dong, so you can read.
But it's so funny
the
when that
finale.
happens, where it's like it's a book I've wanted to read, but for some reason I just can't. Like I can't do it. I mean, sometimes I've talked about it, it's like the die effect, where it's like
Yeah.
I need to be in that exact mind space, and then if it doesn't strike me, then I can't read. But sometimes
Yeah.
you just gotta force it.
Yeah, and this is a heavy one too. And then let's see, TMNT Best of Alopex. I don't know who Alopex is.
Well,
Zero idea who this character is in the
how do
TMNT
you
world.
not know who Alopex is? He's the
Yeah,
best, or she. I don't know.
we don't know.
Yep.
Dungeons and Dragons: A Thief of Many Things, and issue 1, and My Little Pony: Set Your Sail, issue 1.
And then from Mad Cave, we have A Legacy of Violence, issue 12. When the Blood Has Dried, issue 1, which I'm going to give you first crack at that because I do have the review copies. I haven't checked it out yet. But
fucking tell me. You never fucking tell me.
Yes,
You
I know.
always sit on these goddamn things, Nicholas.
I know.
I would love to have read this for today.
I'm so sorry. I apologize. That's on me
Fuck's
because
sake.
I was too excited about the return of Nottingham. Issue 11 out this week. When I said I was going to talk about Nottingham on the show, I did not know the title was going to be returning. I knew it was due to return at some point. I just didn't know when. And I don't think I put it this way previously, but Nottingham is a must-read series for noir fans and folklore fans. You don't need to be a fan of both. If you're a fan of one or the other, you are going to enjoy this series. And then if you're not even like a fan of if you wouldn't identify as either, but you like Robin Hood, again, check this out. And then check out that chat from earlier if you haven't already. David Hazan is the writer. Shane Connery Volk is the artist. Great return to the story. Again, this is the third arc. This is a perfect table setter. And I do think that if you for some reason can't find like the trades and you're like, oh, I really want to check this out. I'm excited about it. Robin Hood, blah, blah, blah. I do think you can check this out, pick this issue up, and it'll give you a good feel and you can get an understanding of things that have gone on. It'll definitely like spoil stuff from the first arc, but at the same time, it's very accessible for a new reader. Just in general, for people who are going to get ready. I know you're not a fan of that. I don't fucking do that either, but I'm trying to help the people out, Joe.
No, I'm still pissed about you not sharing the fucking Mad Cave books.
Oh, I apologize. Honestly,
Jesus.
fair. But with moving the story forward, like this, it moves with this issue, the story moves forward, but it's operating with a lot of the same pieces that we've kind of already been playing with as readers. So that's kind of why I think it's accessible to the people. But like I'm like, for everybody who's been waiting for this, and there's people who've been waiting a lot longer for me for the return of this title. It's a great start to this series. So I hope you get going on this soon, Joe. Because it's definitely going to be worth your while.
Well, we've got issue 100 fastly approaching in the next 3 years. So,
hey, at this rate, though, man, we're coming up on. I mean, obviously, I'm sure C2E2 is going to throw everything off. But we do need to figure out what the fuck we want to do with.
It's a big one. That's a big one. It's in 4 years to get through 100 mainline issues.
Yeah, well, yes. But don't be fooled by that if you're a new listener. We don't count our Friar side chats. They're not mainline episodes. Anyway,
or our specials, or what's new. None of that stuff. So we'd be at 200 probably by this point. Anyways, I'll take us through these next few before we get to Marvel. We got Vault: Unnatural Order issue 4, Titan, Star Trek Explorer issue 1. Nouns. Oh, wait a minute. What the fuck? I told you we don't have this on here anymore. Nouns, Nountown issue 2. If it's out this week, I want someone to send me a picture if it's out this week, because I don't believe that it's out this week. I don't believe you.
Dynamite, Thundercats issue 3. Of course, you're all on the. Joe, I haven't read a single issue. I have the first 2 issues. So, if you want to talk about it on the show, now.
Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, okay, dibs. I'm fucking taking it. Thundercats, baby. You know what I need? You know what I need New Ray Comics to do? I need a fucking Thundercats t-shirt is what I need.
Ooh, yes. Those are
we'll be on our lookout at C2E2.
Oh, good call. Hercules, we got Hercules issue 1 is also up from Dynamite. Jennifer Blood, Battle Diary issue 5, and then we got Sweetie Candy Vigilante issue 2, which then, Joe, brings us finally to Marvel.
All right, hold on to your butts.
Jeez.
According to League of Comic Book Geeks, 87 books from Marvel this week.
Yeah.
What the fuck? I
Light
don't know what's
week.
going on over there. Yeah, for them actually, hey, so it would be like. We have the Amazing Spider-Man issue 47, Wolverine issue 47. Now I know I said issue 46. I was a little about. Have you read it yet? You read?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
baby.
Yep.
That's it. This one's a doozy. Ultimate X-Men issue 2, Fantastic Four issue 19, The Incredible Hulk issue 11, Darth Vader issue 45, which I have to catch up on as well. I got to read issue 44. The Invincible Iron Man issue 17, Resurrection of Magneto issue 4. I know we talked about this ad nauseum, like so many fucking Marvel books need to catch up. Definitely need to catch up on this one. Carnage issue 6, X-Men 97 issue 2, Edge of the Spider-Verse issue 3, Symbiote Spider-Man 2099 issue 2, Miss Marvel Mutant Menace issue 2, Weapon X-Men issue 2, Star Wars The Last
The High
the
Republic.
High Republic, Jesus fucking Christ, issue 6, Thrawn Alliances issue 4, Aliens What If? Question mark Burgundy issue 2, leading me into my book for this week. And this was inspired by the Mac and Goo program
No,
because
don't give them any credit.
no, I'll give them credit. I'll give them credit. This
Bastards.
was inspired by them.
Read a book.
Yeah, well, they asked us to read the book for them because they
Yeah.
can't read.
Cheaters.
But last
Spark
week,
Notes.
Spark Notes, yeah. I definitely did my fair share of Cliff Notes in high school.
I think we all did some capacity.
Right.
I'm sure both of our wives would be like, we didn't do it.
This is way before Wikipedia. Man, had Wikipedia been around? Oh shit, I might have been an A student.
I had Spark Notes. You had Cliff Notes?
Cliff Notes. Spark Notes were there in their infancy. Cliff Notes was they had Spinnerax at Cliff Notes at the fucking bookstore, the Jabberwocky New Report.
Oh.
Anywho, Marvel last week put out a tweet saying if you want to read some books ahead of the Fantastic Four movie, here are some books you should read. It was like Fantastic Four issue 1. It was Fantastic Four random issue whatever. But one of them was Life Story issue 1, which I found surprising because if you're gonna like, if it seems like the movie is gonna be based in the 60s, makes sense that why would you just take that one issue from a story and not take more? Why don't not just tell readers read, Fantastic Four Life Story 1 through 6. You don't need to pull everything from it, but like if you're just gonna pull, from issue 1, then that tells me you're just ripping the aesthetic. You just want that aesthetic for the time period they're in. But I'm gonna tell you why you need to read the entire fucking series because it is excellent. And I know you're not a Fantastic Four guy. You know what? Neither am I. But I love these life stories, if you will. Chip did it for Spider-Man, which I absolutely love. And Mark Russell, which I forgot, wrote Fantastic Four life story. And when we talk about excellent writer, he's an excellent fucking writer.
Yeah, that's a kind of rough because we had him on the show a little while back to talk about a couple of his AWA titles. Of course, he's done Not All Robots, which won an Eisner, and then most recently did why am I blanking on the friggin' face cream story from Mark Russell?
Sorry,
Rumpus Room.
Thank you, Rumpus
Room.
Room.
Room. There we go. Yep.
And he's got the one shot coming up.
It's like Death by Social Media or something like that. I know that's not the title, but I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, it's going to be excellent. But written by Mark Russell, art by now. There's a few artists on this. Now, what's unique about Fantastic Four life stories that each issue is a different decade. So you get the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000 to 2010, right? 2000s and the aughts. And so each sort of has a different aesthetic, so it makes sense why there's some different writers there. So you've got Sean Isaacs, who's the primary artist on issues 1 through 3, Francesco Manna, issue 4, Carlos Magno, issue 5, and Zé Carlos and Angel Unzueta, issue 6.
Well done.
Like that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Colors by Nolan Woodward. And letters by VC's Joe Caramanga. I copied the synopsis here. I'm not going to read it because I'm going to do a better job telling you about it.
Ooh,
than the synopsis will.
ooh, I like that.
So, like I said, 6 issues, goes through the 1960s through the 2010s, and
Okay, yeah, that's important.
right. And so this is a way, I think, for Marvel to give you an origin story, give
Mm,
it that sort of old aesthetic vibe to it, but also now bring it to current day. And they'll probably tinker, with it a bit, you know what I mean, in terms of like the timeline of, this particular story. But I feel like, this is what Marvel will do, right? Like it did this with Hawkeye. They stole the look and the aesthetic from Matt Fraction's Hawkeye, and gave you just a little bit of the elements from that book, but they mostly used it for the aesthetic, for like the title and stuff like that.
mhm.
Whereas, then they just sort of pull things from all these different books and kind of weave it into one story. That's exactly what they're gonna do here. But like, I didn't realize this at the time. I don't know why it didn't like hit me, but like the teaser poster, right, or image that they put out when they announced, Pedro Pascal and all the people, for the fight for the Fantastic Four movie, it had that 1960s aesthetic vibe to it. And
Mhm,
if you look at the covers of Life Story, it's the same aesthetic, the
mhm.
same vibe, right? Where in the teaser poster they got them all just sort of like in like sort of the 1960s, sort of sitting around in a living room. There's some covers that are very reminiscent of that. So this is definitely an inspiration for the upcoming movie. How much of this storyline will be in there? I think a lot of it, but it won't be like a linear sort of retelling. So what we get in this book and life story, and why I love it so much, and why I love Zdarsky's Spider-Man life story, is like there's a very human quality to the superheroes, right? We when you think of the Fantastic Four, when you think of Reed Richards, you're thinking milk toast, super smart, just, yeah, okay, stretchy guy, right? Human Torch and Thing are definitely the two most sort of interesting characters there.
Right.
But what Mark does here is he humanizes all of them. Like, yes, Reed is super smart, but he's not without some very fatal flaws, human fatal flaws.
Okay.
Same with Sue Storm, very smart, but she also has her own flaws, and it's a look at relationships. It's a look at life and how we drift apart over time, and how it is so complex. It's so layered, while at the same time giving you Galactus, right? And giving you Doctor Doom and one other character that I don't want to spoil.
Okay.
I know it's been out there for a while, but for people who haven't read this, I don't
So
want
we're
to give it
talking to.
away
Yeah, that's
because
what we're
it's
talking
not
to
it,
100%.
right. It's not necessarily like a huge thing, but you go, oh, that's how they might do that. Okay, gotcha. Right,
Cool.
because we're in this new phase of Marvel. I know you and I have had these conversations about like, has the Marvel the MCU effect worn off on people, and I think to some degree it has. But I think that like this is the thing. I'm like, okay, Doctor Strange has the chance to really take us to the next level in the MCU, and it didn't. Right? Okay, Black Panther better do it. Didn't really do it. Thor: Love and Thunder better do it. Didn't do it. So it's like, oh shit, right? But I really do think Deadpool, Fantastic Four has the ability to really bring people right back in. And if they take the elements from this series, and do it right, with introducing these characters, I think the MCU is going to be off like a rocket again.
I, so I agree with you on the Deadpool and obviously the X-Men front. I just
Yeah, X Men. Yeah,
and I'm not saying that I question the quality of this series. Mark Russell's right now. Like once I saw that, I was like, oh shit, okay, I can see why like this is gonna be good. But I just when it comes to the MCU, it's like yeah, if they could bring him in with Fantastic Four, great. And that's not a knock on Pascal or the cast at all. I'm not a Fantastic Four guy, so
I know you're not right, but here's the
this is not
thing:
a questioning you. It's just funny being on the opposite side.
there's some of the greatest bad guys, right, are in that
Sure,
universe
we
with
do respect
Galactus
them.
and Doctor Doom, right? And you're going to be introducing those two characters, because I think that's what the MCU has really been lacking. Like in the first phase, or or not the first phase, but let's call it, the Infinity Saga, right? You had the breadcrumbs of Thanos dropped in with those end credit scenes. You knew what you were building towards,
Mm.
right? And so now they start giving us what's his name there? The now canceled Jonathan Majors, with
Kang.
the Kang, right? But Kang never even came close to rising to the level of intrigue and a threat to everything that Thanos was. Galactus and Doctor Doom have that potential to give you that galactic, presence of real impending doom, destroyer of worlds, right? And it is that idea of Galactus that is introduced in this thing that it really is the downfall of Reed Richards, right? What this book is it's the arrival, it's the fall, and it's the redemption of Reed Richards. And I love that, right? I talked about the fatal flaw that we get in these characters, right? They're humanizing flaws because you can identify with each and every one of these characters and why they are as emotionally screwed up as they are, right? So we get your classic origin story. They go into space, and shit happens and they get their powers. But what I loved about this is that there was a great use, because you're going through the decades, there was great use of historical figures throughout those decades. It starts with JFK wanting to beat the Russians into space, right? And so he approaches Reed Richards to build a rocket because their first three attempts failed miserably. So this was Cassandra 4, right? Was going to be Reed Richards, glory moment. We're gonna get into outer space, and he's developing this rocket. But there's someone that in the administration, it was supposed to be their project. JFK took it away from him, so he was set on sabotaging Richards. Pulls the plug on the project, but he says, what, fuck it, we're going to go up in space anyways. They go up there, and the way they did it was the fuel source that they needed to fly this unorthodox rocket was an antimatter fuel. Goes up into space, and there's this weird cosmic rays that they weren't anticipating. Bad reaction. Boom, you've got the creation of your characters. But when Reed is up there, he sees something, and it scares the shit out of him, and it's Galactus. He
Mm.
doesn't know what the fuck it is he's seeing. He just knows that shit ain't good. And then from that point on, that's all Reed cares about. It is his obsession. It drives him. It drives a wedge between him and Sue, from him and the rest of the Fantastic Four. Ben has his resentment because he didn't necessarily want to go up there, and he gets turned into this ugly thing. And
Mm.
right, so some of the familiar tropes, but it really is the focus of Reed Richards obsessing about Galactus and no one believing him. Everyone thinking he's crazy and just blowing him off, and he won't stop. And it causes, it causes Sue Storm to leave him. I won't tell you for whom. Not great, Bob,
You can take a
right?
guess.
But like, it's just, there's just all these elements to it, and it's just, Reed tells, he goes, Galactus is coming, the death of the world, the death of everything, and no one believes him except for Tony Stark and a certain scientist named Victor Von Doom, and they start working together.
Mm.
Right, and that poisonous relationship really you know destroys the Fantastic Four, right? And then the inevitable double cross and everything, like, so it's just like there's so many layers to it. And you got Johnny Storm, dealing with his own personal shit, and what happens to him was like, oh man, right? You see, Ben Grimm come around, right? And then, but like the fact that Reed and Sue just absolutely like, well, Sue hates Reed. Reed never stops loving Sue, but he can't get out of his own goddamn way because of this obsession, with Galactus. And so there's some elements there, right, with Galactus, with Doom, taking, giving us an origin story like a Captain America for the first Avenger type movie type story, where you can this gives you the framework for going through the decades while introducing some of these characters, right? Because in this, Galactus is this impending doom that no one believes, but you don't really get him until close to the end, right? You get a glimpse of him in the beginning, and then you see him there at the end. But it's that ever present threat and obsession, that really sort of drives this story. So you get a lot of characters that we all know and love, throughout the decades. Captain America, Spider-Man, all that. But like you get why Sue is fed up with Reed and why she leaves, but who she leaves him for? Like, are you kidding me? Oh, I was so mad. Even the second time reading, go, oh, no, not a fan, not a fan of you right now. I
Not great,
don't know
Bob.
why. It's not great, Bob. But this is it's all these things. So it's very emotional. It's very well told. The aesthetic, the art aesthetic is absolutely fantastic in the way it sort of takes you through each decade, the historical moments, whether it's JFK, Lyndon B. Johnson, Reagan, right? So on and so forth. These big sort of historical moments that happen just also add to the story as well. So, Nicholas, I can't this was a really good Fantastic Four, and if it's the only Fantastic Four series you ever read, it's worth it because it's not your classic, your traditional ho hum Fantastic Four story. There's depth to it. There's great storytelling to it. And the fact that they've been given sort of these humanistic flaws that really sort of set them down self-destructive paths, I thought was excellent.
I want to. We've already talked about marking this showdown as previously it was to make sure that Joe doesn't call me a snake in a month from
Which
now,
I will.
which you will. But I hope that when you go to say that, Joe, you also remember this moment that A, you've sold me on this story, and B, knowing what they did with Reed Richards in this story, if they take that approach, I'm all in on the Fantastic Four in the MCU. That is brilliant. You're gonna take this guy who's supposed to be one of the greatest minds, if not the greatest mind in Marvel, and then you're gonna go and turn him into like this mad scientist when we all know he's right, and you're gonna put Pedro Pascal in that role. That yes, 1,000 times yes. I absolutely loved the premise.
I wasn't sold on Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, and until rereading this, and I go, he can do that so well.
Yes.
Right. I
Mm-hmm.
think he can because you see Reed at his highest, you see him at his lowest, and there's no stopping him. Right. And he's just he tunes everything up. Nothing else matters to him but Galactus. Right.
I'm so in. This
And
is
his and,
great.
and like his hatred towards the
Wow.
US government for not listening to him. Like, I'm done dealing, it's just a great story.
I'm blown
Right.
away. I really am. This is because Reed's the guy. The reason why I don't like because the other three characters I'm pretty ambivalent about. Like I like the Human Torch has his moments, and obviously the Thing has his moments as well. Like you mentioned before, and Sue Storm I'm pretty ambivalent with about. But I don't they don't do anything for me. But Mr. Fantastic I don't care for. But now doing this with him, okay, and this should this shouldn't surprise us at all, knowing that it's Mark Russell who wrote the story. He's such a good writer.
Yeah, because you don't even see Mr. Fantastic using his powers. Hardly. Barely. It's
Mm,
all about him in the lab, working with Von Doom, working with Stark, trying to, protect the world from Galactus. Galactus is coming.
mm.
He's the killer of worlds. He's the killer of everything. That's what the MCU needs. They need that Thanos-like baddie.
I
And
think yeah, I think you're
we'll get
right.
it here with Galactus.
Yep, and
Right.
then you have Doom built in, who can be something later on too.
Yeah, and if you'd given us breadcrumbs in the end credit scenes of Galactus, right, that's what
Yeah,
the current MCU is missing right now, right? They're just giving us these end credit scenes that are just jokey and funny and don't go anywhere, right? That's what made the first run leading up to Infinity War so great. Is that there's all these breadcrumbs leading along the way because you knew something big and devastating was happening, and then it happened. Well, they have a chance to do that now. They
I,
tried to do it with Kang, just didn't work.
right. I it with Galactus, it could be with obviously a lot of stuff happened with the whole Kang stuff, obviously, but with Galactus, it could absolutely work because everybody's been itching for it. And then with Marvel, you mean with Marvel, with the X-Men, that's my number one property for X-Men. There's a lot you can do in that kind of realm as well. But another one that we've talked about before that I would like could absolutely should get brought into the mix at some point too is Null. That's not now. Like with the Skull with Galactus, you have a lot of stuff with X-Men too. But like when you talk about having this like galactic issue, it's a formula that works. If it works again here with Galactus, Null is another one that makes a lot of sense. You just got. I would like to find a way to bring Gore the God Butcher back in the mix. I don't know if Bale would do it, but he was really good in that role. Anyways, I'm all in, Joe. Like this is you sold this well.
It's on Hoopla. It's on Hoopla. You can read it on Hoopla.
So there you go, everybody. Hoopla, and then if you fell in love with it, then go pick it up. Support Mark Russell and his work and his the litany of artists that he worked with. The book that I want to talk about this week. Let's see if we can go 2 for 2 in winning one another over here. I'm talking about the Sacrificers. Now, you all may be wondering what is Joe? Is Joe anti-human sacrifice? I think he is. I am as well. I think that's not great. But we're dealing with animals in this instance.
I'm less against human sacrifices than I am birds. I'll tell you that.
So I had my issue with Mr. Fantastic. You won me over. I just have to get you past this bird issue, which is definitely a larger problem. However, I will say off the rip that we're not solely dealing with birds in this story. So there is that. Okay. One.
Okay.
I think it's, and I'll you know what? I'll just tell you this right now. It's like you have this family of birds that you meet early on in the story, which you see some of them heavily throughout the first issue, and then again in the second issue. But then is pretty much at least through the first 7 issues, you really only have this one pigeon that you focus on. So that's really it. There may be like other birds in the mix, but they're not like it's not a story only about birds, like by no stretch. Like so you see like reptiles, you see like these other godlike figures and all that. So that alone should be enough to break that wall down for you because I know you like Rick Remender and his writing. He's the writer of this series.
Tremendous writer. The
artist of this series is Max Fiumara, who this is my first introduction to him, and I'm very excited to talk about his style. Colors, Dave McCaig, whose work is very important with Fiumara's art style, and then letters, Russ Wooten. This is still ongoing. I know on League of Comic Geeks, it's solicited out to 9 issues to this point. I don't know if there's going to be more than that. But the first 6 issues just came out in trade form, and then the 7th issue came out on the same day, just to kick off the month of April. So if you want to do a full catch up and get right on page with everything Sacrificers, go get that 7th issue. You can, and then if you can't get that trade, get it ordered because it is available for you to pick up. This is something that the pacing is really interesting on this because it starts off a little slower and then it builds. And then you get to a certain issue, and I'll dig into that a little bit more, where things kind of just go off the rails. But I will read the synopsis just to give you guys a little bit more insight before I get going. Tomorrow is a harmonious paradise thanks to 5 families who make everything perfect for the price of 1 child per household. Now, as the bill comes due, a son expected to give everything for a family that never loved him, and an affluent daughter determined to destroy utopia must unite to end one generation's unilaterally protracted reign. Some big words at the end there. But I think our readers can put it together at least better than I can. The characters that we have in this story, I mentioned a pigeon. He is referred to as Pigeon. He is the main character, one of the main characters. He is a member of this group that is the Sacrifice. Obviously, the Sacrificers being the title. And basically, that's what you hear about. You heard about him in the synopsis where he's one of these members that's going to have his life sacrificed, and he's been in this family that has seemingly not loved him throughout all of this and so on. And I'll get to that a little bit more later. We have Noom, who befriends Pigeon as a fellow member of the Sacrifice, but she views her role a little bit differently. She sees it as more of like a blessing and a privilege, which is interesting for a litany of reasons. But as a reader, for me, that planted seeds of doubt in this story as things went along. Then we got Princess Soluna, Yes, Saluna, I think is how you'd say it. She is the daughter of King Rokos and Queen Luna, and they are the leaders of the gods. But those two, so King Rokos is basically the Sun King. Queen Luna is the Moon Queen. They are her parents, but they are, while I think technically still together. I think separated would be like the legal term. Like they're still together, but they're not together. So they have there's a whole dynamic there, and that kind of that gets explored throughout. That definitely gets explored throughout the first arc of this, and then you have the foreman who you see in the first issue. In his he's around throughout the story, but kind of becomes a more prominent figure later on in the arc. He's the gatherer of the sacrifice, and you find out there's a little bit more to his role as this arc goes along. But I'll tell you what, with the foreman too, he's he's got a really cool look too. Like I have no idea exactly what his deal is, like in terms of like what's going on underneath the mask. I couldn't tell if it was him or not, but it's a mask, and you find out later what he looks like. So, and there's like an interesting, like I don't want to obviously spoil that, but there's like an interesting element to what you when you see that what that character actually looks like under the mask. As far as the art goes, this feels like this like the story was illustrated in an era in the era that it's happening in, which like I think what I mean by that is this is like a high fantasy type of story, like very like old school, like I don't I don't want to say Lord of the Rings time like type times, but it's like it's along those kind of lines. But obviously, we're dealing with animals and human-like individuals as well. Those are the gods, though. So I think like you get this old school kind of vibe, and to me, it makes it feel a little more authentic with and it feels like more. It adds to the originality for me, and the colors are obviously massive in when it comes to that. But there's also the line work. I do like the designs of these gods. They feel very familiar. So we're talking. So again, we're talking about like King Rokos and like Queen Luna. Like Queen Luna, like with her design, like she walks around in just her skin, and but her whole body is basically like the moon in its surface. So like it's a very like it feels very familiar, but also like I I don't think I've seen that before necessarily. Does that kind of do you have anything like that you can think of?
No, I was gonna make a joke there, but I won't.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was coming, but then like same with Rokos, like he has a look that feels familiar, but I don't think I've ever seen it before. And then and the other thing is too with Fiomar's approach to like the inking, you're gonna when you guys read this, I mean, even if you just see the cover for the trade, you'll see like this looks dark, and this adds again to like kind of the authenticity of it. But this looks like a dark story. It very much is, in the inks and like how heavy the use of that in this story, like not like overwhelming, crazy heavy, but like in the very like in a specific amount. It adds to the darkness. It adds to the dinginess of the story. And I think to circle back on what I'm saying with like the illustration, like this feels like this is a fucked up story, man. Like I feel like you know what? There's like a fairy tale about this story, and that we've heard about over the years. But this shit's actually the real fucking story, and like this art really like brings you in that way. And then when it comes to the writing, so this first issue starts off on a little bit of a slower pace. I know you couldn't get past it because of the birds. I get it. You have the slower, sad tone in this first issue. Then the second issue, things kind of get called into question. Maybe there's a nice spin on this. I don't know. And then the third issue, things get fucking crackers, wild, and it's like, oh shit, just absolutely bananas. And it's just the start of things because like issue 5 and issue 6, man, like things get ratcheted up in ways that you would not have seen coming. And with that too, like there are expectations with some of these characters and the roles that you see them in. Like we have this young princess who I mentioned before, Saluna, where like you have like because of her parent dynamic, the way we're introduced to her, there's like a level of expectation for the role she's kind of going to take on. Her especially, but we also see that with Pigeon as well and some of these other individuals. But with those two, I'm like, okay, this is what's going to happen here. This is going to happen here, and then Remender's like, nope, that's not, and I really like how there's that playing, like it's just like he's like walking a fine line with these characters, and then as the arc comes to a close, and then you even get into the seventh issue, it's like no. Like, and even when you read the synopsis too, like I feel like that can be in a way misleading. Like we'll see where things go, but I really thought that was like an interesting twist that I wasn't expecting. So there's like twists abound in the Sacrificers. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I do think too. Seriously, like if you didn't, if there weren't birds in this, you would have read this and you would have absolutely loved it. You're muted.
Yep, sorry. I definitely was like, the art definitely wigged me out a bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And I said, it's all yours, buddy. All yours, which is a book I love. I love Rick Remender. Speaking of which, I think he wrote Deadly Class, which
Yeah.
is
Oh
a
yeah.
book neither of us have read, right? And
No, neither of us have. I was actually thinking about
we
that
need to
today.
discuss that on the program at some point.
Yep.
Excellent. From what I hear, it's absolutely excellent. But yeah, I'm going to at some point suck it up. Now, get past that first issue and a half, because this book has gotten a lot of praise, as it should from the sounds of it. So, yeah, I gotta check. I'll be a man.
Yeah, you can do it. And what's really interesting too, I think, for the first issue, you'll get this right away. Like it causes, like it's setting this, the first issue is setting the stage for this world that you're in, the major issue that's at play. But then at the same time, it's also asking a question too, like what would you do if you knew a child of yours was going to have to be sacrificed in some capacity? Like if you lived in a society where this is the fucking norm, like how would you handle this situation? Because you have like this element that's going on with this family, and then it's like you see it, and then things unravel and unfold in the way that they do, and it's just I just the journey of that alone was interesting.
I'd take a shit ton of steroids and learn how to swing a sword and kill everybody.
There you go. So there you go. That is. I'll tell you what. Spoiler alert: Pigeon's dad did not take steroids. So that's the only spoiler I will give everybody. But yeah, it's like that. That's a whole another thing. Like, it's just like, what do you like? How do you handle it in these times? Like, this is the norm. Like, what the fuck do you do?
Yeah.
But anyways,
Kill
like,
everybody.
yeah.
Kill everybody.
All right. Well, there you go. Especially the birds, right?
Oh, that first to go.
That's your target practice.
Didn't ring shit.
But that is going to do it for us this week. I think we do have another mainland episode penciled in as we slowly inch towards TLDR mainline issue 100. But again, subscribe to our audio channels, because you never friggin' know when a Friar Side chat's going to drop, because we never know when a Friar Side chat's going to drop. Make sure you subscribe there. Leave a 5-star rating review. Otherwise, you're going to learn the real meaning of Backcrack. And if you can leave a higher rating, by all means, please do. Joe, until next week, stay sexy.
I'm going to do my absolute best.